I'm Karim. I grew up in Queens. I was raised by a single parent on government aid. I think there's a lot of similarities in our stories here. My parents were immigrants. They weren't your traditional immigrant who was like pushing education down our throats. They were sort of like, if you want to go to school, you can go. If you don't want to go, no big deal. I had 60 absences when I was in 7th grade. Just started to disconnect a little bit. Wound up going to my local high school, which at the time I thought was amazing. There were 4,400 kids there. My teachers were absent all the time. We would run through the hallways. We threw paper at the subs. We were so horrible. It wasn't until I started to get ready to get out of high school and finally got into college that I started to do research and learn about the inequality in education and realized that, we were being robbed of our education when our teachers weren't being there. That wasn't supposed to happen. We weren't supposed to have different subs every single week. We weren't supposed to be running through the hallways. And someone should have been complaining or saying something to the school system because that sort of existed. My older brother and I graduated high school the same year. He later dropped out of a 2-year college. So much of what we went through was just normal. And I started to learn about the inequality. I started to learn about the thousands of reasons or millions of reasons why we have achievement gaps in our system. But I was even more frustrated by the fact that so many kids growing up just like me were being written off every single year. So I was a freshman, I was working hard, I was at Baruch my freshman year in New York City, and I read a stat that said that 11% of first-generation college students graduated from college over 6 years. Not 4, over 6. So I don't even know what the 4-year graduation rate was, but if they were low income, they were also less likely to graduate, and I was like, this isn't cool, I don't want to be another statistic. I was super naive at the time because either way you're going to be a statistic, right? You're either going to be in the 11% that graduates, or you're going to be in the 89%. Back to my, the lack of smartness at the time. But I was like, man, I don't want to be a statistic. I'm going to work so hard. I'm going to prove that kids growing up from the neighborhood that I came out of could achieve, could do everything, like break barriers, set records, whatever it had to be to prove that we can do that. And I was lucky enough to have a series of nonprofits and mentors who kind of pushed me, who supported me, who gave me the opportunity to be able to do that. And when I was 18, I started a nonprofit organization originally called Practice Makes Perfect as a way to pay it forward and give back. We focused on summer because the research said that summer was 2/3 of the achievement gap. Right, and if we could end the summer slide, then we could at least push kids forward, and hopefully if they're at close to proficiency by the time they get to high school, and then through high school, they can go to a great college. I got to a point my senior year of college because this was sort of a side thing. When you grow up poor, you want to be rich, right? And I had mentors now and friends who were like, Karim, you're smart, you're hardworking. I transferred to Cornell at this point. I was getting ready to finish with a 3.7 GPA. If you want to make money, you go work on Wall Street. And so I did my internships at Goldman Sachs and at BlackRock in investment banking and then in the fixed income portfolio management group. Got an offer for $70,000 a year coming out of school, and I turned it down. And I turned it down because I looked at the landscape of everyone who was trying to change education or reform the system, and I realized that they were all people that I looked up to and admired, right? Like Wendy Kopp, Arnie Duncan, Diane Ravitch, Michelle Rhee, even Jeffrey Canada, right, who was awesome. But they all had never gone through these inner city schools. Even Jeffrey Canada talks about how his saving grace in his life was being able to go to Long Island for high school. And so I was like, you have all of these incredible people who are trying to change the system, who have these elite educations with no firsthand perspective of the problem that they're dealing with. And so that was my moment of truth. Here I was, I had gone through these inner city public schools. I had come from the community that I was trying to support. I genuinely believe that the poor are the most equipped to help themselves because they understand the problems that they're dealing with, and I had been blessed with this elite education. So if nothing else, I could at least articulate the systemic issues that I saw in our public school system because I had this inside perspective instead of this outside looking in perspective to the work.